Hello everyone, I am Laura Myth Tamer and welcome to Wizard101. So the biggest question that gets asked when you first start playing Wizard is which school should I pick? And believe it or not, I actually played Life the first time I played the game, and I played all the way up until level 80, and about midway through I decided I wasn't really feeling it. I've seen myth enemies and I've seen other myth players throughout the game, and I came to really love this school, so I made a myth wizard and I just stuck with it. I loved it so much. So I really want to help you guys find the school that you guys love in order to give you the best experience out of the game. Whether you are a veteran player or a absolute beginner, this guide will be able to benefit you in a lot of different ways to help you figure out which playstyle works best for you, or if you're wanting to get into a new playstyle in order to play the different schools. So the schools are broken into 4 main categories: support, tank, damage dealing, and then I have another category that I just kind of set aside in order to explain those specific different things. The first one I want to talk about today is the support class. Alright, so to begin, this is Laura Life Tamer, and she is a life wizard. Life wizards are called Thurgist or Turgist. I may be really butchering that name. But anyways, life studies healing. Life studies life and all things nature and all things growing. And life is your typical healer in a team setting. Life has heals, such as Pixie and Satyr, and that's their job amongst their team. They typically have much higher health than a lot of the other schools. Like, I have 1,316 and I think I'm only level 20. And I've gotten into some team fights with some other people and they're stuck at around 1,000. So that isn't much, but like, it is something. That's Life typically has more health, but they do less damage because their main role is a healer. So if you really love healing and being the support and your teammates relying on you to make sure they can get out of the fight alive, then this class is perfect for you. Next up is balance. I decided to use Laura Life Tamer again since I do not currently have a balance wizard. Balance wizards are called sorcerers, and their main thing is that they are the buffing class. Now, balance gets a lot of hate throughout the wizard community, mostly because, oh, they don't do enough damage, or they're really hard to solo, or whatever. But I believe that the game functions off of balance. After all, they are the medium school. Life goes against death, storm goes against myth, ice goes against fire, but balance is the heart and soul of all of the other schools. They embody all of it. So their thing is that they buff. And by buffing, I mean they help their teammates in a way that no other school can. They can give blades and they can give traps that are versatile. And they can be used amongst pretty much anybody, no matter what school you are, and they can help you reach your max potential throughout all the different schools. Balance is your main buffing class. If you like being the person that everybody's like, give me this or give me that, and you are the reason that you get out of the fight so fast and so quick, balance is a really good school for you. If you like buffing your teammates, balance is the perfect school for you. Another thing that balance does that can also be a reason you pick it is it is also one of the most challenging schools. They don't really have anything in terms of health or damage, or there's no add-ons there. They're just kind of the middle. And because of that, they are, in my opinion, the most challenging school. And if you really want a school that challenges you and makes you think really hard, then balance is also the perfect school for you, because that is what it is. And also, this is a perfect school for somebody who really wants to get into the lore of the game, because balance is also super lore based because of the way that the school was created. It goes along with all the other schools, and that also would benefit you in joining balance. And that's not me being biased towards it or anything. I just know that a lot of people get discouraged to play it because of all of the hate around it, but it's really not that bad if you were to try it out. So if that's the kind of character or gameplay that you're looking for, then balance is the perfect school for you. Alright, so moving into the next category, I will be talking about tanking. This is Laura Ice Tamer, and she is an ice wizard. Ice wizards are also referred to as thaumaturge or thaumaturge. I probably did not say that right, but so, if you don't know what tanking is, they are basically protecting their teammates or protecting themselves from taking damage. They pretty much use their shields and armor in order to go the longevity of the fight in order to win. So if you like being the one to take the damage and have people attack you and hit you in order to keep the rest of your teammates safe, ice is the perfect skill for you. They typically have higher health, and they do medium damage. As you get further on in the game, they typically tend to do more. That's a later on thing. But ice is on the higher end of health. They're up there with life. And if you are someone who likes to tank, then ice is the perfect school for you. It is the tanking school. All right, so next category is our damage dealers and our hitters. And the main damage dealing school is, of course, Storm. Storm wizards are known as diviners, and they do damage dealing. I'm using Laura Fire Tamer because I don't have a Storm wizard, but Storm has their whole thing is that they want to hit so hard and do so much damage that they don't even have to worry about healing or worry about shields because they have killed them before they could even blink. Or that's some kind of little spiel that Helston Bellstrom gives you when you first become a Storm Wizard, when you first begin the game. And I mean, that's true. Storm Wizards are on the lower end of health. They don't really have much in that aspect. They have also really low accuracy, but insane hits, insane damage. Storm is also a very popular school amongst wizard. They're not one of my favorites, but they are very popular and they do the most damage if that's what you're looking for. If you just want to hop into the game and you want to knock out some enemies, Storm is the way to go in that aspect. They also I think they have the most amount of AoEs attack on everyone in the entire game, which is also super beneficial. That means they get stuff done super quick and super fast. So if you really want someone who does damage and you want to be the person that everybody on your team is looking down to do that big hit at the end that wipes out all the enemies, Storm is the perfect school for you. So the next school that I want to talk about is Fire. They are the other damage dealing school. I'm using Laura Fire Tamer again because of course she is my fire wizard. And Fire's whole thing is that they do a slow burn, as Dahlia Falmea would say. So by that I mean they have a unique ability called a dot. And that means damage over time. So you basically do base damage and the dot will increase more damage as time goes on. It typically goes on for 3 turns. So for instance, let's say you do a base damage of 50 and that the dot does 25 damage each over time. So at the end of it all, you're doing about 100 damage on an enemy while also maybe doing other damage spells. Like you can stack those. So while the dot's going, your other teammates can do damage on the enemy or you can do more damage on the enemy, and it's a really good way of dealing damage but without doing it all at one go like you would Storm. And I think that is a really cool aspect to the game. In my opinion, it's a little bit more complex than Storm, but I don't really want to say that because I know people have different opinions on things. Also different to Storm, they still have low health, a little bit better accuracy, but they're better than Storm in that way. But there's nothing really to say on that aspect. It's just they're kind of like balanced in that sense, but they make up for what they lack with their damage that they do. So if you kind of want someone who is really beneficial in team play, but also does a lot of damage, Fire's a pretty good choice. That would be a good character for you to play if you want to be a damage dealer, someone a little bit more complex, and also be both a good solo and good help to your team. Fire's pretty well rounded in that aspect. So moving into the next category, it's kind of the category that's all on its own. So the first school I want to talk about is Death. I'm using Laura Death Tamer, and no, she's not as pretty as the other ones, but she's new, so yeah. Death wizards are called necromancers, and they focus on all things to do with death, life after death, and summoning ghosts and scary things from the dead. But the thing that makes death so unique to other schools is that they are the soloing school. I've seen people pretty much finish the entire game by themselves as a death wizard, and I think that is by design, because death does a thing of dealing damage and then healing themselves back for, I think it's half. So let's say you do 50 damage on an enemy, you'll drain and then take 25 and heal yourself back for 25. And that is a super duper useful tool. So really, if you are somebody who wants to solo the game, doesn't really want to get into the whole thing with finding teammates, or you're not really much of a talker, or you're kind of like to play games by yourself, Death is the perfect school for you, because that's mainly like what it's for. I found it very hard to try to play Death in team situations, which is why I have such a new Death Wizard, because it just hasn't been viable to play in team scenarios. So that's kind of what it is. If you really want to play the game by yourself, then Death is a really good option. But please note, the way to balance that out so that we are not just going through the game and absolutely conquering everything, most of the main bosses in the game at the end of each world are death, to make it harder on you trying to complete those battles by yourself, because otherwise, you know, it would be a little too easy, I guess. Not really easy, but yeah. So like, for instance, the final boss of Wizard City, the final boss of Chrysalis, I'm probably missing a whole bunch, but that's what I think of off the top of my head. Darkmoor, Dragonspire, etc., etc. That's something else to look out for as a Death Wizard. Also, a big majority of mobs and enemies are death too, so that also kind of makes it a little harder as a Death Wizard. But other than that, Death is the solo school. So if you were wanting to solo the game, Death is your option, so go for it. Last but certainly not least is Myth. And then once again, they're in their own little category. I am using Laura Myth Tamer because, you know, she is a Myth Wizard. And Myth Wizards are known as conjurers. They can conjure things of all in your imagination. Things from fairy tales and stories and things that you've never heard of, because myth is the embodiment of chaos and imagination. And I feel like that's a really good way to explain this school. A lot of people, when they first start playing, because of the way that the game is set up in the beginning, is that Myth is all about minions and using minions to do specific things and do certain stuff. And as you progress, you realize that Myth is so much more than just minions. Once you get past the first arc, Myth becomes the middleman school. Myth can tank. Myth can do damage. Myth can be a support in terms of buffing. And I mean, I wouldn't say Myth can heal, because they kind of only have like 2 healing spells. One of them comes directly from minions, and the other one is, of course, a craftable spell from, Grindel's Amend. But other than that, like, you could get a Life Mastery Amulet, and Myth would be so viable. They can pretty much take any place needed and be any kind of person that you need them to be. But they also have unique things like Shatter, and these things can be used to do things that other schools can't. They can take traps off of enemies, or off of yourself. They can take shields off of enemies, take their blades, whatever. And that's what makes Myth so useful, because they buff in that way. And then they also can do everything else. They have the 3rd best damage, I think it was ranked. And they also have pretty high health. Like, they actually have really high health, more health than you would expect them to have. And they are probably the most versatile character out of all the schools. But something else to note is that it's really hard to get to that point. You have to get through the first arc in order to actually fully utilize a Myth Wizard. Well, not really get through the first arc. I think you start doing it around Mushu, but beginning of the game is kind of rough. But if it's something that you really want, Myth is the perfect school for you. I think it is, in my opinion, the second most complex, if you play it the right way, or you play it the way that I play it. Myth is also super good in PvP. There are different stuff like Earthquake. So if that's something you're interested in, you want just a totally unique take on the game, Myth is the way to go. Also, you get a super awesome teacher, Cyrus Drake. Just saying, he's pretty cool. Pretty cool guy. But anyways, that wraps up this video. I really hope you found it helpful. I really hope that you're able to find a character that you truly enjoy playing, and that it really makes you want to get into the game, because it's such an awesome game that's incredibly underrated. So if you did find this useful, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!